Hi, guys. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Stand podcast. This is Francois. I'm here with Roel today. Hey, Roel, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome to this episode, guys.
Yeah, and today we have people from Wyebots, and we're actually also recording videos. So if you guys want to also watch this recording, you can on YouTube. You can head over to the YouTube channel Clear to Stand to find the recordings. If you're listening to this via audio, and so without further ado, we're just going to welcome our guests today from Wyebot. We have Roger and Anil. Roger, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us on the podcast. We're very excited to be part of this community. I've been in the networking space for 30 years, and I've been running Wi-Fi business units for over 20 years. So that's been my focus. Prior to Wyebot, I ran HP's global Wi-Fi business for 7 years. And it was during that journey, I'm now the CEO and co-founder along with Anil of Wyebot. And it was along the journey of at HP where we're working with CIOs and IT leaders all over the globe. And we realized there was a major pain point. And the Wi-Fi networks, and we'll be talking about this more today, but the Wi-Fi networks are very dynamic, right? As we all know, they're challenging. Even if the design of the network itself is optimized, there's so many variables in terms of neighbors and software updates and IoT devices. And so that's when we realized we need to build a system that's leveraging automation and AI technology to help solve these complex performance issues with the networks.
And so when did you I guess we'll go back to Wyebot. We'll just let Anil present himself. Anil, go ahead, present yourself and let us know how you ended up in the Wi-Fi space.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Anil Gupta. I'm the co-founder and CTO along with Roger. Uh, like Roger said, we've been in the networking space for over 25 years. Myself, Roger similarly. And just during the journey, we started off developing access points, Wi-Fi access points, and got into, of course, when you are developing APs, you also go to troubleshooting. And slowly over a period of time found out that this manual troubleshooting method is very, very painful. It is fun as an engineer. You always want to look at pcaps and look at what happened, what was the flow, etc., but certainly does not scale. And I've held different positions, senior architect positions, and have multiple patents as well, both in networking and in Wi-Fi space. So it's been a fun journey, and we are out here to solve this with automation. That's the solution for this at a scale.
So when did you guys decide to create the company and I guess dive into the startup world?
Yeah, I'd say, it was the last 2 to 3 years at HP. As I mentioned, when Anil and I are both working with a lot of our Fortune 500 customers and enterprise customers all over the globe, and we were sending key resources out to customers all the time, right? And they were having Wi-Fi challenges, and of course intermittent challenges. And it'd be a hospital at 2 in the morning, right, or a manufacturing facility with robots, right, and they would be having problems on their second shifts, roaming problems, etc. And so we realized that we had some of the top Wi-Fi engineers in the country at HP, and we were doing this, and it was taking time. And we realized it's not going to scale, as Anil mentioned, right? These networks are changing too quickly. The Wi-Fi technology, as we all know, continues to change. And then just the explosion of both IoT and cloud computing, right? If we look at fundamental shifts happening in the industry, cloud computing and IoT devices and mobile connectivity, that's core to most enterprises now. It's the on-ramp to the internet. It's a utility. And so we said, this can't be done. It's not scalable. Even with the best expertise, as Anil mentioned, to be able to support these complex networks, we need to drive automation. And so we left HP and we started building Wyebot, working out of my house for a while until we're ready to scale.
Awesome. I mean, that's a great story because you guys do have plenty of background in Wi-Fi, so it's not like you're starting from scratch. You're actually attacking a specific pain point that people have, and I know I'm a user of Wyebot, and I think can you give us a summary for people who don't know what exactly Wyebot can do for them? Just a kind of quick summary, and then we can dive into some of those details.
Yeah, let me give a quick overview, and then Anil can add to it. I'll give you the high level because Anil is going to give you a nice walkthrough of some of the core automation capabilities. But at the top level, our first pillar, as we call it, is Wi-Fi automation, right? And what we mean by that is we take edge computing, where we're actually monitoring all the 802.11 traffic in real time, every single packet on the channels that we're monitoring. We analyze that with edge computing, and then we run the metadata through our AI engine that's running in the cloud to proactively identify end user performance issues. This is the game changer, right? We're actually proactively identifying the solutions, the problems and the solutions to these complex Wi-Fi issues. So that's the first core pillar. The second core pillar is synthetic network testing. What we realized was missing when you're on the network infrastructure side, access points, controllers, network management, is the true end user experience, right? A user using the Wi-Fi infrastructure. And so you have to come in and test everything, including the access points, the authentication, and the whole end-to-end communication to the cloud applications. And so we built a whole suite of synthetic testing that can run and get these quality metrics for IT organizations and monitoring trends, and of course, being proactively alerted when there's issues that come up. And the third and final is a whole suite of analytics, including device forensics, where we can provide a rich set of content, telemetry data, analytics about what's happening in the Wi-Fi ecosystem. Because we're vendor agnostic, we're giving you a holistic view of everything that's going on.
Yeah, that's great. And where I like to live is in those network tests that you run on these sensors, because you can define what exactly tests that you want to run at what interval. And for me, when you talk about the proactive piece, that's what's important, because as network operators, a lot of us hold multiple roles, right? Wi-Fi is just one of them. You want to just know when an issue occurs, but maybe not from the end user, but before the end users know. And then you could start troubleshooting from there, right? You at least have some data to give you or get you closer to a root cause analysis.
And something I would add to like how we started, is that when we actually started, one of the things we were very early on struggling with was, should we have a software only solution? For early investors, etc., they were saying, oh, can we have a software only? And we, with our experience, we felt that how do we in real life actually go and troubleshoot things, right? I mean, there were two tools, I would say, which are all part of the bag of tools that we carry, primarily a Wi-Fi sniffer and a spectrum analyzer, right? So we wanted to build a solution, that those two tools, they cannot be kind of in an app, in a phone device, right? And that's what drove us towards a sensor-based solution. Now, it brings a lot of power to you because that's very real to and very close to how real engineers do troubleshooting. However, what you need to add to that is automation, which is what Roger touched upon. Yes, collect the data, passively, but now analyze it using an AI engine. And that's where the power of the whole solution comes in, so that you can scale it, whether those are distributed locations, whether those are tests on demand, and whether those are specific device troubleshooting, the three pillars that we touched upon. And we'll show you, more in the demo how our product works.
Yeah, because I was thinking like you said, it kind of, the sensor, it kind of capture all the frames, and then you guys have your AI engine that can analyze the traffic and then look at, potential problems, potential solutions. But when we do troubleshooting, we also like capture frames ourselves. So it could be nice also to be able to just upload a PCAP or something, and then have your AI engine do the same type of analysis for us, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
Not real time, but after the fact, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, and we do have the ability to download PCAPs, as well. And that's one of the unique features we'll show you shortly as well once we jump into that section.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think one thing to take away right now is that you have this sensor, this network sensor. It's hardware based, and Francois is holding it up, which I think is
I'm
great
showcasing
because
it.
yeah, he's
Every
showcasing
angle
it
of
there.
it.
It looks like an access point, so it blends in nicely. It looks nice aesthetically, but also trying to remember what I was going where I was going with that.
Sorry,
but
I distracted you.
I just started looking at the sensor, but the where I was going with that was because you were talking about software only, right? If you do software only, it's on somebody else's hardware, so you lose some of that control and optimization. So using your own hardware, you have control over the whole thing, including your software. So being able to just roll out a piece of hardware that you own, that you're running your software on, I think is a very beneficial thing for you guys.
Yeah, and just to add to that, well, thank you. Agreed. As Anil mentioned, it was a strategic component of our decision. Our sensor, as you just saw, Sensor Pro, is the best in the market. And the reason for that is because we've customized it with 20 years of Wi-Fi experience on Anil and his team. So inside it, we have 3 Wi-Fi radios, right, which is relative unique in the market, right? We have extended memory, extended processor, right? All the core functionality like Anil mentioned, where instead of carrying around spectrum analyzers, we built that into the sensor. So yes, we have the rich set, all the capabilities that we wanted, we put in there. So it's all automated and remote. Such a sweet solution, for distributed enterprises, et cetera. Now you don't have to travel on site. With one dashboard, you have complete visibility. So yes, the hardware that we chose and what we designed from our experience is the leader in the market and allows us to do some very advanced features, not only with the AI, but with the analytics we're getting.
Can you describe what the Wi-Fi functionality is of the sensor? Like which version of Wi-Fi it supports?
Certainly. I'll let Roger, and any of us can answer that. But one other thing I would add to the birth of the product, or like how we designed it, is one thing that was very much paramount in our minds was plug and play. And I know we all know that thing is been so beat up in the industry. Everybody wants to call their product plug and play, and and really that in our case, that we wanted to design the solution such that it is not an afterthought. Like we really mean you should be able to deploy the solution, deploy the sensor in any remote location, just plug in a wired Ethernet cable. That's it, nothing else. There is no console port. We removed the console port idea, like from our minds, from the sensor. There is no such thing. The classic networking property always has, okay, let me plug in the console port 192.168.1.1. Let me go configure this thing. No, none of that. We said it has to just work, so that especially distributed enterprises, you can just ship it, make it plug in into an Ethernet port with PoE, and done.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It should be simple, especially if I'm gonna ship this to somebody who's not technical, right? It should be a simple port you plug in, and just so people know, yes, you do need a wired connection for these sensors. It's PoE capable, right? So you should be able to plug it in. It'll get a DHCP address, and then it starts talking to your platform, which is in the cloud.
Yeah, there is an option for Wi-Fi as well, backhaul, and there is a DC power adapter, possibility as well. But the recommended method is that you plug in. That's the easy method. Of course, there are people who may have custom use cases for connecting with a DC power and Wi-Fi backhaul. And now we can answer your other question, which was what is the Wi-Fi technology it's supposed to? Roger, you want to take that? Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Anil. You can keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are 3 Wi-Fi radios in the sensor, and there is a Bluetooth capability as well. So 2 of them are 11AC 4x4 Wave 2 11AC radios, and the third radio is an Intel radio, which is a 2x2x2 And that one, we have multiple different flavors. There is an 11AC version, there is an AX version, and we are working on the 6E version as well. Will be out pretty soon as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's key for people if they try to compare, say, the sensor with whatever type of device they have in their environments. For example, warehouses, it's not quite, apples to apples with a scanner, but you do know that the sensor has additional capability. So what's important though is being able to test every band that you're using. So like you said, 6 gigahertz coming out soon. There's no date on that right now, but we'll be very much looking forward to that one as we start rolling out 6 gigahertz.
And how do you guys recommend mounting the sensor? Is it something you put on a desk? Is it something you put under the ceiling, like an AP? And then how many sensors do you install? Like, how do you make that decision? Can you guys provide a bit of guidance around this?
Yeah, certainly. So as far as mounting is concerned, there are multiple ways of looking at it. One is you can mount it right next to the AP. Some people would mount it, we say within 3 to 6 feet of the access point. So if you're ceiling mounting the AP, then you can ceiling mount the sensor as well. The other approach, where there are some people who use like either a floater sensor for troubleshooting client devices, you may also put it on a desk, if you want to, just facing upwards or right next to a TV or a wrench or something, that you could be using in an automation, warehouse automation. So there is no specific guideline, but people who use a combination of permanently mounted and a few floater units, the permanently mounted ones typically go alongside the AP, like I said, 3 to 6 feet. The floater units can be mounted anywhere, can be just placed temporarily to gather data for a couple of days, weeks, for problems that are intermittent, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was on the side of, I'm putting this near the client that's having the issues. But like you said, when you're mounting it, and I thought about this, when you're mounting it next to the access point, I was thinking, all right, I'm really getting the access point's perspective of things, but because it is mounted closer to an access point or on the ceiling, it could actually hear a lot more clients.
Yes.
So rather than putting it on a desk and you're getting attenuation from other materials that are nearby, you do get more, I guess, the sensor can hear other clients, so you can troubleshoot more clients if they're not roaming around or not near the sensor at all. So I think it's just like two different ways.
Two different installation approaches. And your second question, Francois, was that how many sensors, which is a very common question that we get. So there are, again, two different ways of looking at that. One is you can approximate in your head, about like one sensor for every 10,000 square feet. That's one way of looking at it, or kind of just coming up with back of the envelope, numbers as to. And the other way is you can have, typically people do one sensor for anywhere from 3 to 4 to 6 access points. Now, when you do, 3 to 6 APs, this is where we actually recently, a couple of years ago, we added the ability whereby with one sensor, you can actually make it run network test against up to 6 different BSSIDs. So you can say, or APs for that matter, actually 12 different BSSIDs. You can select how many APs around the sensor you want to test. You can select what bands you want to test, 2.4 only, 5 gig only, both bands. And that is, again, something unique. In one of our trademark tests, we call it Link Doctor. We will show you that one. Very useful to test, kind of port forwarding. Can I get an IP address if I connect to this one? Is this, again, go back to the remote mentality. We know if you do a speed test, you will not get, super or great numbers, when you're doing a speed test to a farther away access point. But the Link Doctor test, primary purpose is to test connectivity, port forwarding, VLAN, IP addressing, all of those things, that we have to figure out, maybe one of the AP switch ports or the SID configuration is wrong. Those kind of things you can test very easily with our trademark Link Doctor test. So that's where the recommendation for anywhere from 3 to 6 access points kind of comes in, or one sensor per 3 to 6 APs comes in.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note because there are so many different parts of Wi-Fi where it can go wrong. And it's not always the Wi-Fi network, right? It's not always
Yes.
RF. It could be something beyond the access point. So that's why you run various different types of tests. But I do like your point about having that sensor see more than one access point, because now maybe it's not the one access point you continually test that's having issues, but maybe a different access point, whether that, like you
Yes.
said, the VLAN issue or something else, right? Maybe the cable's
Yes.
bad. And so you can kind of see that from a test and kind of troubleshoot further. So there are a lot of things to consider. It's not simply as taking a sensor and just saying, here you go, I'm going to place it here. Maybe just think a little bit more strategically about how you use a sensor, how it can be used more efficiently and have a greater impact for multiple users, rather than thinking I'm just going to troubleshoot the one user that's having an issue with the sensor.
And Roel, we help our customers with that as well. What I mean by that is we do free trials, right? And one of the values of that is exactly what you and Anil were talking about, right? Which is, okay, what's the building construction look like, right? What type of synthetic testing coverage am I looking for? And so we literally just provide our customers, we ship out a free trial and they can put it whatever environment they're in and get that experience, that simplicity plug and play, along with helping them finalize, right? We have nice templates that give them guidelines, but then they can tune it and finalize, okay, what locations in terms of density of sensors.
Awesome. So why don't we, or Francois, do you have any other questions you want to ask before they kind of dive into the platform itself?
I was going to say, why don't we dive into the dashboard and take a look at it? So
Sure. All right. Let me share my screen.
Because so while you do this, Anil, we should mention that you guys provide a dashboard in the cloud that kind of provides an overview of all of the sensors. We can configure them. We can monitor what's going on, and this is where we have access to the AI and the Wi-Fi automation that you guys will showcase.
Yeah, exactly. One dashboard we have Fortune 150 customers rolling us out globally, all their locations around the globe. So from one dashboard, you can get visibility, insights, alerting, configuration, everything's done within that one location.
Okay. And while Anil's pulling that up, what are your target verticals here?
Yeah, so what's exciting is not only are we vendor agnostic, which I mentioned earlier, but I just want to reinforce that because in this world that we live in, there's a lot of challenging interoperability issues, right, and roaming issues, et cetera. And a lot of the customers are trying to identify, is it something to do with the infrastructure? Is it something to do with the client, or independent altogether, it's interference, et cetera. So Wyebot is standards compliant. So we're going to give you a standards point of view and help you rapidly understand, what's causing those performance issues with our AI technology. But in addition to that, not only are we vendor agnostic, but we're vertically agnostic, right? Because we're based on the standard. Now, from a company point of view, right, there's a few verticals that are real strong in manufacturing, warehousing, healthcare, education, right? Those are ones that we're stronger in. And as you can imagine, they're business critical Wi-Fi, right? If you think of healthcare with patient monitoring, Vocera badges, et cetera. You look at warehousing with robots and automation. And then, of course, education, one-to-one computing, higher ed, dorm rooms is a huge challenge with all the student devices. So they tend to be our core verticals. But to be honest with you, now with our expansion over the last couple of years, we're growing very, very quickly. We're in most verticals, but we tend to have a strong focus in those 3 to 4.
Awesome. Thank you. And so Anil's pulled up the dashboard here. It looks like he's drilled into a specific location and then a specific sensor itself.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll touch on briefly on how here is a top location level view, and we just in this location Wyebot Knowledge Park, we have multiple sensors. I'll just click on one of the sensors. So one key pillar that Roger touched upon early on, or of our solution, is the Wi-Fi automation, or we call it autonomic Wi-Fi. And this window over here where you see the issue detail, that is all of the sensors that is collecting the data using its passive Wi-Fi radios, and then analyzing that data and then sending that data to the cloud, which then goes through the AI engine and then figures out what are the problems and then makes recommendations on those problems as well, how to solve them. So this is all real time. And then you may also click on historical data where you can go back a day, past week, month, you can click on any data point over here, and say, okay, I want to look at what happened on Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and here we are as an example, a client was attempting to connect and the AP did not respond. This is the client's MAC address, this is the AP. We've automatically figured out the name of the access point, what SSID, all of that information is there, historical. And now let's say if you are a pro engineer and this is not sufficient for you, you can even go back in time and say, okay, I want to actually download a packet capture trace from that point, Tuesday, September 6th, at 9 o'clock. I can actually go into the advanced menu over here. I can click on start new download. I'll select my date and I'll say that I want to do it for 9 p.m. And, I want to download a PCAP trace for 10 minutes. So you can do that. And this is one of the most unique features, that Wyebot has in the industry, whereby we, on the sensor, keep saving the PCAPs, and you can go back and select any period of time. And you can download that PCAP, by the way, from any of the radios, whether it is the 3 radios that we have, the radio 1, which is by default configured on 2.4, radio 2, which is on 5 gigahertz by default. Again, you can change those channels if you wanted to. And then the 3rd radio, which keeps on continuously scanning, you can do any of that, and here we go, the PCAP with all the 802.11 headers, those are all available.
I do have a few questions before you go to the next part. So you were looking at the issues detail, and there were different issues categorized as minor, critical. So 3 different categories of issues.
Yes.
How do you define what is critical, major, or minor? And is that something that is customizable?
It is not customizable. And part of it is like, us doing that on purpose. And A, it is based on many years of our own experience. B, we are also aware, having been as an AP vendor, when we used to have the dogfight of who's selling APs, how many APs can I cover the area with? And we all know that, you could customize your planning tool to say, oh, neg 65 is okay, or neg 75 is okay, and make things look green or orange or red. And we did not want to mask the issues, right? Okay. So it goes into kind of 2 areas in that, like that whole thought process made us say to ourselves that we don't want the user to unwarningly or unknowingly mask the issue. Like even this whole idea of hidden issues, some people want to say, I don't want to see this, because I've configured it like this. But that does not mean that the issue has gone away. It's just that you don't want to see it, so we can say show all, and now they appear. So the classification is ours, and the hiding part is also kind of, we give you, but we don't give you that control, sort of.
Yeah.
There are a few things that you can configure. So we thought about it. So if you go under advanced, you can configure under alerts. As an example, the max channel utilization, right? So we consider, if it is greater than 80%, but somebody else may say, oh no, 95% is okay. So what we then do is we'll allow you to run that signature. We call that each piece of logic a signature. And we say, you may want to call 95% as acceptable, but we don't agree, but we'll run it for you and we'll alert you on your 95. But that doesn't mean that 80 goes away. So kind of that's the thought process behind the classification done by ourselves and not allowing the user to configure critical versus major versus minor.
Okay. And then in this sensor dashboard for the individual sensor, there's a lot of different cards here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you dive into what gets shown on this page and why, and then maybe dive into the next thing that you think would be
Absolutely
good?
So a couple things which are always there, which is the AP tile, and it looks very simple, but the magic here is it is showing you the access points that the sensor is able to see. But like I said, the magic here is all of the kind of back end correlation that we've done, because as Wi-Fi engineers, we are very used to looking at BSSIDs, right? If you take a PCAP, figuring out what AP has what radios and what BSSIDs is broadcasting, especially in an unknown environment when you put, because either if you are in a multi-tenant, facility, or imagine New York City where you could have many neighbors, you don't know what your neighbors are doing, right? And what kind of APs they have. So here we do all of that correlation for you. As an example, if I click on this access point, which is Ruckus Wireless, it's part of our lab network. If I click on this small magnifying glass over here, it actually shows you that there are two radios, each one has 4 SSIDs configured, and these are the BSIDs. So we have put a lot of kind of call it magic behind the scenes to figure this out, so that logically as Wi-Fi engineers, you want to think of APs and then drill down into BSIDs, not the other way around. So that gives you, a logical viewpoint as to how many APs are in and around you. So that's kind of one of the tiles, and then you can do a lot of searching and sorting, etc. You can put in filters here. I want to see my APs 5 gig only, 2.4 only. You can do, sort them by channel, a whole bunch of different things. If you're trying to look at channel overlap stuff, you can look at that kind of stuff. We've done all of this based on our own experience, how we have been troubleshooting typically, right? I want to look at everything that's on channel 36. Now I can see, and this shows you an 80 megahertz channel, for example. So that's the AP tile. The client tile similarly shows you all the clients that we are seeing connected on the channel. The key here is the channel. This is not just your clients. This is all the clients that can be observed on that channel. Could be your neighbors. And we are showing you where they are connected. And then you can again do device forensics on them, meaning you can go back and look at, okay, was there something going on with this device? Here we can see that some point in time, there were a bunch of clients, connected on the 2.4 gig spectrum. So we all know 2.4 many times can be congested. So this shows you the current status, the capabilities of the client, 80 megahertz, 2 spatial streams, band capability, all of that. So the objective of our whole solution is, again, based on our experience, we know when you're trying to troubleshoot something, you really don't want to leave any stone unturned. You want to look at the packet captures. You want to look at RF as a holistic thing. You want to look at spectrum analysis. You want to look at, if I had a well-known client, how would that behave? And I'll go into that piece next. But one more thing to show, this RF analytics shows you the channel utilization, right? If I click on historical data here, I can look at the split of interference, data traffic, management traffic overhead. That's very important, for us to know that, like, okay, if at midnight I look at, I think my management traffic is pretty high, even at midnight when there is almost nobody there, right? So those are the things, trends that you can look at from here. You can look at noise floor levels, is your noise floor too high? Somebody brought in and suddenly, we know, like one of our customers, the so-called green energy initiative, they brought in a whole bunch of like pucks in the wall, and they were all Wi-Fi enabled. And the objective of the buildings department was to turn off the printers at 7 p.m. But nobody informed the IT department that these pucks are now going to be broadcasting 2.4 Wi-Fi in the air. So suddenly the IT department, okay. So those are the kind of things they can see from here. We also have non-Wi-Fi interference, the spectrum analysis built in, right? That's the other piece, that the tool that we often carry. So you can look at trends, this could be a possible interferer, it may be from what time to what time the interference happened. is there a pattern in that? Is it happening every 2 hours or something? You can go hunt it down. So those are, again, the things that we as ourselves, engineers in the field, have faced. And that's what has driven many of these, whatever we've tried to put in here in the dashboard.
And that RF analytics, how does Access Point select what channel it's going to analyze?
Excellent question. So by default, because of our plug and play mentality, and that's how we want the solution to be, by default, the sensor will select the closest channel next to it. If you go to the sensor configuration radio page, everything is by default automatic. Channel is selected automatically. You can override, you can go do manual channel selection, you can do it yourself. But when a sensor is first deployed, it will pick up the closest AP and tune itself to that. But then you can also say, hey, I am in a multi-tenant building. These are my SSIDs, and actually, the following is my neighbor. So then you can tell the sensor, if you select a channel, select from this SSID and the best one. And then it'll automatically keep following that. So it's, again, goes to our auto configuration, automatic channel selection, and plug and play behavior.
So I'm guessing the reason why you want to stay on the channel is to make sure you don't miss any frame exchange, right?
Yes.
So
these two radios are dedicated. They are 100% like they don't miss a beat, whereas the third radio is the one which is multi-personality. It has 3 different personalities, actually. It can be the passive channel hopping capturing radio. It can be the Wi-Fi backhaul, or it can also be the radio for network testing, which is the next feature we're going to talk about. But I'll pause. I think you were going to ask some additional question around this.
Yeah, I was thinking, if you have more APs than sensors, obviously you're going to use more channels at what you're scanning. So you might be like, there's a little bit more strategy that has to be involved into placing the sensors and configuring them, maybe.
Correct.
So
Correct.
You can scan all the channels.
Yes. So the 2 primary radios, the 2 11AC Wave 2 radios, those will latch on to the channel that you automatically, they will latch onto the channel closest to the closest AP. But we do give you the option of manually selecting and hard coding, kind of hard setting them, if you ever wanted to do it that way. So if there's an AP that is farther away, that is on a different channel, and you wanted to do that, you can certainly do that as well.
I also had a question, Anil, on the information that you the critical major and minor events that you're bringing up to us. I'm guessing this is going through your AI, AI engine and algorithm. My question is, do you have is it just like analytics of the frames, or do you guys try to do a little bit more? So for instance, here you have one that says Wi-Fi management traffic overhead is too high, or earlier you had one where it said you had a little bit of a retry rate for a client device. So do you just present the information as it is, or do you try to understand, okay, is it something that is, lasting for X amount of time, so we have to worry about, or try to understand a little bit more the context of that scenario? Because we all know sometimes that could be a false positive, someone leaving the cell, just having a little bit of retry before it disconnects. You know what I mean? Like these type of normal behavior. How do you guys kind of build the AI to avoid having so false positives?
Absolutely. Excellent question. So what we do is, while we collect the data continuously, we have to pick a number, and based on, again, on our experience, what we've done is we analyze the sets of data every 5 minutes. So if the condition is lasting over a 5-minute period, then we call it out. Otherwise, I agree, there could be blips. So you have to pick some averaging interval, if you will, right? And in our case, we felt that as long as we can detect a problem within a 5-minute interval, that's good enough. Now, you could call it half an hour, you could call it 1 minute. 1 minute could yield more false positives. So that's why the 5-minute number was chosen based on our experience. And I think we have hundreds of customers, across the country, across the world, and it has worked very well for us.
Mm-hmm. I think what would be useful as well is for you guys to have some sort of feedback, some sort of feedback loop, is add a button for the user. So as a user, we're allowed to say, okay, this was very useful and this was not as useful.
We do.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
So if you click on this small gift box icon right on the top right side, you click on this and it actually brings out this box, and you can tell us if you like something, you found a bug, or there's a nice to have. And once you do that, you don't have to go through your sales guy. It comes right into our R&D team, our engineering and product development team. So yes, we get a lot of feature requests, a lot of wish list things, through this box. So we welcome you to utilize that.
Okay, I was thinking more directly related to your AI engine, so the user can provide feedback into the algorithm, if you see what I mean. I know it's some dangerous sometimes.
I understand. I follow what you're saying. Yeah, we could look into that. Certainly, great idea. Great idea. So the next and the last pillar, of the solution is network tests, and that is a key pillar whereby one of the Wi-Fi radios in the sensor can run a variety of different kinds of network tests, ranging from basic ping test, do a Nmap network discovery. You can run application tests, speed tests, port scanning, DNS performance. All these are all based upon, like I said, hundreds of years of experience, doing Wi-Fi troubleshooting in the field. I'll just pick one of the tests. I mentioned earlier the Link Doctor, which is a trademark test of ours. You can select to run this test on wired only, Wi-Fi only, or both the interfaces. So I'm going to choose, for example, wired and Wi-Fi. You select the SSID you want to use, and this is where it gets really interesting now. You can select the AP automatically, just like a normal client would do, select the best one. I can say I want to test a specific access point, which is XYZ close to the AP, which could be 200 feet away for that matter from the AP, right? And this is where we had earlier said, how does the sensor, select which AP to run the test on? And this is, again, one of the most unique features of Wyebot, amongst many other companies that may provide ability to do testing, network testing. To the best of my knowledge, we are the only one where you can test a specific AP. You select the sensor, and now actually I can select specific, BSID, et cetera, from here. The other option is I can say I want to test multiple access points, and I can select how many I want to test. So I could say 4 APs. I could also say which band I want to test, 2, 4, 5, both. And if I selected 6, for example, here, and both bands, essentially now the sensor is going to run the test on 12 different BSIDs, on both bands. So, and then we break down, I won't go into each one of the tests, but I'll show you like at a high level. As an example, if I look at this cafeteria sensor, we'll see if there's a Link Doctor here. This is the multiple AP test. And here what you can see is we do it exactly like a advanced troubleshooter would do. Hey, can you connect to the Wi-Fi? All right, you connected. How long did it take? What was the channel? What was the signal strength information? If there was radius involved, how long did the radius take to respond? Did you get an IP address, and what was the DNS server? How long did the DHCP take to respond? After that, could I ping the gateway? And this gateway is automatically derived from the DHCP allocation. Then we'll try to ping the DNS server. Can I get to that? And in some cases, pings to DNS are blocked, and that is a configuration option in our test setup. Then can I ping very common 88888, very commonly used? Can I get out to the internet without a DNS resolution? If yes, can I resolve a host name? Then can I finally get out to the internet? So this is just a sampling of like what the Link Doctor, how it is designed, and you can do that on wired or wireless. And there are many tests that we have. You can look at stuff, you can look up a graph of DHCP over a period of time, how my DHCP is performing. You can look at graph of your DNS, your radius, is your radius server responding well in time? This can be done over day, week, month. DNS test, speed test, there are a whole bunch of tests, but I don't know how much time we have, Roel, so I'll give you, I'll take a pause here.
Yeah, no, I think it's the link doctor test is really good, and the way I like to see the test is one test done on 2.4 and one done on 5,
Okay.
rather than selecting auto. That's just me. I like to separate those two tests in order to
Yeah.
see the difference, especially if most of the primary band for your users is possibly 5 gigahertz. So I'll do the test there. But what I like most about that link doctor is really diving into the different steps of connectivity and then being able to see where that fails. And like you said, some environments block ping to certain things like the gateway, but
Yeah.
you can still keep moving forward on the test and see, oh, I can still get out to the internet. So maybe that's fine, right?
Yeah, you can configure, if the pings to gateway are blocked, then you can uncheck this. If the pings to DNS are blocked, you can uncheck that. And we won't attempt to do that then.
Yeah. And I think starting from there, that's really great because it really encompasses the whole connection. But the other test that I like seeing here is you got a Zoom test. And I think
Yes.
with how critical video conferencing is today, getting to make sure that Zoom performance is well, because I do get a lot of complaints like, hey, Zoom is not doing very well. I mean, I just got an email while we were in this, I got a little ding while we were in this recording saying, hey, Zoom wasn't working very well. And I'm like, well, it would be nice to really confirm that.
Yes.
So like maybe dive in, like, how does that work? Are you really connecting to like starting a Zoom conference, for example? Like, how does that work on your system?
Yeah. So let me start off from here. So, when you select the video conferencing test, you can actually select what kind of platform you want to emulate, simulate. So we are not, to be fair, we are not connecting into Zoom, because what we are actually doing is we are running an iPerf test, to an external server, which is hosted by us, but we mimic the behavior of a Zoom call or a Teams call or, a Google Meet or a WebEx, etc. And you can do custom as well if you wanted to. Essentially, under the hood, we are generating, X number of megabits per second, of UDP traffic, or and Y amount of packet sizes. And that's what is happening under the hood. The reason we wanted to do it that way was because that's essentially you want to test outbound, if I were to do exactly how Zoom would behave, what would happen? Because if Zoom servers are having a problem, then Zoom servers are having a problem, right? So, but here, if you look at, and then the other thing that we do also on that is, again, going with our simplicity criteria, we convert all of the results into kind of humanly understandable things. Is it bad? Is it fair? Good, very good, excellent. So behind the scenes, we are actually doing all of that things. We are figuring out the speed, we are figuring out the packet loss, latency, jitter. We put that mixture into some formula, and we figure out the MOS score, which is a technical number. All the engineers would love that. We plot all of that for you as well, if you're really interested in those details. But to the end user, what they're looking for is, okay, has my Zoom been up, so, or not, right? So this is giving you the score. Now, if you are interested, so we call this user experience, but if you are interested in the down and dirty details kind of things as well, you can look at any of these things. What has been my packet loss? What has been my jitter? What is the latency? Has it been up and down? But what we're saying is, in this case, it's, less than 100 milliseconds. So it didn't actually bother you. It's been, between 30 and 70. So staying with our simplicity philosophy, what is the end user experience?
So with the traffic that you're generating, because we know that when we use a video conferencing tool, we have different type of traffic that's generated, voice, video, data sometimes, not necessarily all the same level of QoS going, coming back. So are you guys trying to kind of simulate that?
Yes. And since you mentioned voice, I'll show you. We have actually also added voice as well. This is on my private cloud here. We will soon be releasing that as well. So if you go in here at the network test, you will see that there is actually a test for voice over there as well, and you can select, the voice simulation that you want, Vocera, SpectraLink, Cisco, etc. as well. And again, if you have something else, you can certainly do custom over there too. So yes, we are simulating. It is different traffic characteristics, different QoS level, and we do that, on the upstream and the downstream.
So do you work with the vendors, or do you just reverse engineer how they work?
Reverse engineer how they work, because we have enough experience over the years working with so many of these.
Yeah, it seems like you're just using like simple metrics. Like Zoom has specific requirements for an HD video conference, right? So it sounds like you're just kind of basing it off that.
Yes.
So I saw a drop down that said HD, and then you had another option that said fewer than 5 users.
Yes.
And I know for having dealing with Zoom that if you go to 5 or more, there's a different requirement for that, because there's more people, there's more video.
Yes.
And so they require a certain amount of minimum.
Well, so what they do is that when the number of people increases, it actually doesn't, it's not linearly scaling, that if there are 50 people in the call and everybody's using 50 kilobits, so now if there are 100 people, they pretty much like max out at X amount, because they know people's upload and download are only fixed, So that's why the behavior largely, less than 5, that's what we've observed, and we are happy to get feedback from others. Hey, what we've done is wrong, or like can be improved further. We're happy to do that. We've done our research, and that's how we kind of arrived at this. Again, keep it simple. We can make it a lot more nuts and bolts and tunings, but
the way I see it is technically you're meeting the requirements, the technical requirements, in order to have to get a good mean opinion score.
Yes.
And so if there is anything else that is impacting the user experience, it's most likely not the network. It's either what I've seen, the individual device having a problem because you are viewing 50 different videos and now the CPU is pegged or something like that. But this is a way to show, hey, you do have good Wi-Fi, good network, low jitter, low packet loss. The call should be good.
Yes. We have other tests as well, but I think, in the essence of time, I won't go through each one of them, but there are, other things that you can test as well.
Yeah. For organizations, Office 365 is an important thing for every day.
Mm-hmm.
Same with like Google. So you can test all of those resources and ensure that all your employees or students have access to that.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the fact that you are testing the wired side of things as well, because you can set up a separate network test just for the wired side. And it's key to test that because you want to know if you ran a test on Wi-Fi and there is an issue, you need to know, well, did that extend to the wired side of things as well? And maybe you can see that Wi-Fi is good, but hey, something upstream like DNS or DHCP is an issue, or something even further upstream like a router, that a network issue that's occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this DNS test, this is another very interesting one, because many times there are DNS, either the backup DNS not working very well, so we automatically figure out how many DNS servers you're assigning, and we go utilize DNS, or do DNS resolution using each one of them. So you can see performance trends across your various DNS servers, So again, attacking every aspect of that, the link doc to the DNS, the speed, the iPerf, the Zoom, the voice, look at the RF, so your bag of tools replaced by one thing, that's Wyebot automatically doing that for you.
And how long do you retain this data?
1 month.
Say for
1 month.
Okay.
1 month is through the UI. And for anybody wanting to keep, longer than that, we actually have the ability that you can export that through an API. You can pull the data, you can keep it for years and years if you want to.
Can you dive into a use case for that API?
So there are, yeah, absolutely. So we have had a few customers say, oh, we want to feed that into this XYZ system, which is like utilizing, we're getting feeds from multiple cloud applications, right? And they want to import data from there and import into a SolarWinds or something like that, So different people have different use cases, but that's the reason, I mean, somebody would want to import data and keep it for longer duration, or do further analysis of their own if they wish to.
And is it the same data that we see in the dashboard?
Yep.
Is there
yes,
an extent?
everything that is available through the dashboard is accessible via the API.
Okay. And is there anything beyond the actual beyond the dashboard that you get? Do you see anything else that?
No. Okay. The only thing actually you cannot do through the API is you cannot do any configuration. It's a kind of a read-only thing. You can fetch data, you don't make any configuration changes, through the API.
Okay.
Not much to configure anyway in our product, but because we want it that way.
Yeah. Can you run me through? I just want to shift the gears a little bit. Can you run through like a typical scenario and the workflow that how someone should be using this dashboard? Like, someone has an issue. How do people typically use your dashboard?
So first thing is, of course, you'll add the number of users, who want to access the dashboard. You can do that over here, and then this location is, you could create multiple locations, you get a Boston, New York, et cetera, on like my own personal cloud. That's how you will logically divide if you have multiple branch offices or buildings. So you kind of logically divide your sensor deployment like that. And then once you are looking at a specific location, in this case, Wyebot Knowledge Park, we kind of provide you a top-down summary approach. Here, you can see a summary of all the APs, all the clients. You can see how much airtime utilization is happening. Clearly, 2.4 is high. Total number of APs being seen, Wi-Fi networks across there. And actually, this is one tile we did not talk about at all, but has been, or is a useful thing, which shows you your split of 2.4 versus 5 clients. How many are not just capable, and how many, on the other hand, are capable but not actually connecting to the 5 gig network. And then this green circle shows everything that is capable and is also connecting to 5 gig as well. So, and this is at the location level. Then the next thing at the location level, very useful, is this whole summary of network tests. Now you can see a small percentage of tests, are failing. I can click on this and I can see, that, okay, about 200 tests failed. So I can see what is going on. I can see that, small percentage of these tests running on this SSID are failing, and I can click on this plus sign, but I also see that there are some which are exceeding the DNS threshold, right? And this is something that you can configure on a per SSID basis. So you now can see all the tests that are configured on this particular SSID, Meraki-Enterprise, and some of these tests, the Chromebook test and the DNS performance test failed. So from here, I can go into that test to see, where and when the failure happened. And here you also see below this, the threshold, the deviation from the threshold, which, by the way, is configurable on a per SSID basis. So when you say, how does one actually use the dashboard? Typical first thing when you deploy Wyebot solution is that you'll actually get an exclamation mark over here on the left sidebar, which will say that you have not confirmed your SSIDs. We will automatically detect the SSIDs and kind of populate them here. And then you can say, yep, these are mine. And once you confirm them, then that will make sure from there on, all sensors will tune their channels to your SSIDs. And second thing is that from then on, they can also be used for network tests. So, and then you can create your default set of network tests, so that you can do all the synthetic simulation, network test simulation, the way you want it to be. And you can look at all the summary set of results. And once you start looking at this dashboard, then you can start drilling down into a specific sensor. What is it reporting in terms of RF, network test, and these are all showing in red color. So you can see, I see a pattern over here. Maybe I'm doing a backup, every night at midnight or something like that. That's why the test is failing, or like I lose my speed. But that's how a typical user would start looking at the dashboard.
Okay, great. And one of the things that I'd be curious about, and probably because this is just something I'm used to, is this looks like more of a network operator's dashboard. How about the managers? Let's say a manager doesn't necessarily want to dive into all of this. They just want a high level
High level
summary.
summary view.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
something you have that's a
So
capability?
well, yes and no, I would say, I mean, and that's where when you asked earlier, that what is the use of the API? Some people, may not like the way we show things. And again, UI is a funny thing. We've tried to do our best, of how we believe things can be useful. So the consumer of the dashboard essentially, is they may have a different perception, but we are open to user feedback, customer feedback as well. I think this is at the moment we've received kind of very good thumbs up from most end users, but I certainly understand. I'm not denouncing the fact that there could be other higher level, C-level people who may say, even this is a little bit too much for me. Just give me a red or green, So yeah, there's certainly we're open to ideas, suggestions, if you have over there. But the analytics, what we are thinking at the moment that some people may want to look at like a third level, which means I want to look at all of my locations, or stuff like, where you may want to look at things on a map, for example, right? Those are ideas, certainly we can enhance upon, and we've been kind of thinking at the back of our minds, maybe we want to do that someday.
Yeah, and do you think it's also possible to build something like that with the API if somebody, let's say you don't have those features yet, but someone who has the API access can also just start creating that third level or even creating their own reports based on the usage of
Yes,
the API?
yes. Actually, as a matter of fact, we have a few handful customers, who've imported the data and then put their own, using Grafana, for example. It's a REST API, and you have all the things. Like, for example, if you fetch stuff through the API, you will get the location name. So if there was a Boston, New York, California, San Francisco, whatever, you'll see that, and you can group them, regroup them, whichever way you like.
Okay, awesome. I think this
Mhm.
is like a really good overview of Wyebot and your sensors and how you take that data to show you can be more proactive with how you manage your Wi-Fi networks. We're all busy as network operators, so not everyone can just kind of sit there and watch their Wi-Fi networks, right? And this is why we have a solution like this, is to be able to send out a sensor in distributed environments, be able to see what's going on, what kind of issues are popping up. You've shown that you can set up synthetic tests, which are, I think, very useful to be able to catch any issues that occur and handle them quickly, especially since you could alert on those. It looked like you could send email alerts. I saw a little option there
Mhm.
for a checkbox, and
Yes.
then even customize how often you want to run those tests. You had various options there, like 20 minutes every 4 hours. So it doesn't have to
Yes.
be uh, aggressive, but maybe I would just caution people not to do speed tests all the time on their Wi-Fi though.
Yes.
That
Yes.
might, I think you even have that set to a minimum. It's not every 20 minutes or something, but
Yes. Yes. We do have a recommended option. So based upon the test profile, you know, we certainly allow you to, like, if you select speed test, we automatically set the default to like every four
okay.
hours. We do
Yeah.
allow you to change that. If on the other hand, for example, if I do a ping test, you could do a ping test every 20 minutes,
Yeah.
or you could change it to 10 minutes if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? So we do auto select and try to minimize the things that the user has to click through.
Mhm.
Actually, one other thing which we did not touch upon was this AP classification. This is another thing that a lot of people find useful. So if there are unauthorized access points that are discovered in your network, you can be notified about that. If there is a hotspot that is turned on, in a dome environment, in a school, in an enterprise, you can be notified of that. So you can utilize all of this. You can say, don't show me APs that are very far away. We can also tell our system, automatically delete everything that you saw within 90 days. You can change that number to 120 days, or you can change that to 30 days. You can do, any and all of these changes. You can classify these APs into kind of 4 different buckets: my APs, my neighbor's APs, something that I don't understand yet, and something that I have actively classified as unauthorized.
Okay.
That's the mine, known, unclassified, and unauthorized. So, and you can basically, on the dashboard, we show that color coded here. So I can say, show me everything that is mine, and now all the green ones show up. Show me everything that is not mine, and I can see all of the other ones, and I can go and classify them into any number of ways.
Awesome. Yeah. Lots of customization, lots of different views that you can take a look at. Anything that you want to see, the things you don't want to see, you could hide. Very useful data, I find. I think it's going to be useful for a lot of people. Again, as we bring an end to this episode, can you tell everyone where they can find more information and also maybe get started on their own trial?
Certainly. I think, the place to go is go to wyebot.com, and you can, from there, you can just click on get a free demo and fill out the form, and somebody will be in touch.
Awesome. And where can people find you and Roger online if they want to communicate with you guys on social?
So our marketing team kind of takes care of that largely, but we are certainly both on LinkedIn. Personally, I'm not too verbose on Twitter or one of those. I know in the Wi-Fi world, Twitter is the more accepted one. I'm not against any of that, but I just don't get time to be over there all the time. So, but we are certainly on Twitter and LinkedIn, and as well.
Awesome.